I want to let people know kind of just my experience with this film is taking me back to the early 2000s. And if I can remember correctly, I believe it was this film. Uh, but I remember sitting at my parents' house, AOL internet, dial up, and this thing called the internet. And I'm just like,
because it was one of the first videos on the internet.
yeah, I'm sitting at my parents' house, this redneck kid in Pennsylvania, not knowing what the internet is,
Right.
and not I didn't know how to use a computer. I didn't know how to use a computer until I got to college, and they're like, "You need to use a computer." I'm like, "I have a typewriter." I had no idea, and so
I'm right with you, by the way.
I just typed in something with interest. I probably typed in alien or something like that to see what would come up on this magic machine.
Yeah.
And this video came up.
Yeah.
And it probably took an hour to load. But I remember watching it and getting so scared because I'd never saw anything like this. Like, it was the same feeling I had when and you can call me a wimp if you want, but when the movie Signs came out and that alien walked across the camera and they showed it on the TV and Merle gets scared and he jumps back.
Right.
That's what I did when I watched the movie. I was scared. I was like, I've never saw anything like that before. Movies don't show these things. Like, it was just like, whoa, you know? And that's how I felt when I saw this film. It scared me. I had to turn off the computer. I didn't know what I was looking at.
Yeah.
And so this is the film we're discussing today. And you did a thorough investigation into it. You know the names, people connected to it, and you've been spending a lot of your time, energy, and money to get this information out to the world. And that's why we're here today. So I want you to kind of take us. How did you come across the video?
Sure.
How did you start taking it serious? And what were the steps involved here?
Yeah. Let me just give two real quick stories, because how does a automobile dealer and, former pro wrestler and a guy that was, running for governor, get involved in alien? I've always been interested in the paranormal and ufology, always. I wasn't a researcher of it, but I was always interested in it. I had two really strange, bizarre events. One was not documented. One was documented because I emailed Stanton Freeman, I emailed Jim Mars, and I called John Lear. 3 people. The first one was in 1988. Now, I'm 20 years old. I'm about to go to Singapore and Indonesia to wrestle. I'm in college. I'm chasing every young lady on campus that I can. I'm living in Chicago, suburbs of Chicago. Ufology and politics was about as far out of my ecosystem as anything, as finger painting. And I fall asleep, and I have a daydream, like a semi-lucid. Again, 20 years old, in college, chasing women, pro wrestler, about ready to go to Singapore, worried about term papers. I have a semi-lucid dream that I'm the governor of Illinois. I'm looking you straight in the eye, that I'm the governor of Illinois on a hill, and it's like the scene before. This is 88, so this was before the Armageddon battle scenes of, I think, Lord of the Rings or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, way before that, but it was that type of scene, like a 500,000 aliens coming towards me and other people. And I remember the sky being red. Okay, for whatever. Whatever. Okay, let's move on. Now, just remember that. 1988, 20 years old, I'm a governor of Illinois fighting aliens. I think people can get how bizarre. And I'm just saying, I'm not saying that God did this. I'm talking about when you put something in your brain, okay, 30 years prior, be careful. Put stuff in your brain that's good. I want to have a nice wife. I want to be a good dad. I want to, put that kind of stuff in your brain. Okay. About 2 months before I saw this film, I think this is one of the creepiest things that I can ever. And again, I emailed Stanton Freeman to help me digest what was going on. Called John Lear. I had to pay to do that. He was having that service. You pay $20. You can call him. Just want to tell people that all this is legit. I'm not just throwing out. And I emailed Jim Mars. I call him Tex Mars a lot. He died. He's the journalist with the mustache from Texas who did JFK and ufology books. It's 1997. It's 1:00 in the morning. I am laying on my couch, like with my feet up and my back against like the armrest. I'm reading William Cooper's book, Behold a Pale Horse, very famous book. By the way, who in 1987 says that there's going to be a ramp up of school shootings and to take guns away. I found that very prophetic. This guy was writing this 30 years ago. So he's talking about, look, if the government wants to hone in on you, they can see, telepathically to some degree what you're looking at. If you are at their target, I'm going, come on. I know there's aliens, but gee, this is crazy, crazy, crazy. I'm reading. My pager goes off. Again, this is 97. I have a pager.
Yeah.
Look at the number, call up the phone. A lady answers, and you can hear music in the background, like a rave party. It's like boom, boom. She's like, hello. And I'm like, hi, I just got a page. She's like, I didn't page anyone. I'm like, okay. I'm like, who is this? She's like, I'm making this name. I'm Laura. Oh, well, is this your number? She's like, yeah, this is your number. This is like my private line. I'm the general manager of Excalibur nightclub in Chicago. Okay. I'm like, and you didn't page me. She's like, no. And she goes, what's kind of this 1:00 in the morning. She's as spry as she said, what's weird is that there's 4 people that have this phone number. My husband, the 2 owners, and the general manager. She asked me the general manager. I'm like, no, I don't know. She's like, I have no idea who would have put in this number. Nobody knows this number. This is my private line in my private office. I'm like, I'm so sorry. This is the general manager of Excalibur. And not 5 minutes, 7 to 15 seconds later, I sit down on the couch. I read the last chapter, and I remember the page was here. I read the last sentence. I turn the page, the top of the page, the Excalibur Project. And, I don't know if I've been knocked out before. Corporal Kirshner punched me in Japan, knocked me out. I relieved my bowels, and I'm not being disgusting or sick. I'm just saying, I didn't know whether to crap or go blind.
Wow.
And I froze. I'm like, this just happened 7 seconds ago. This wasn't 2 days later. And now I read the Excalibur. And I hate saying this, but on the souls of my family, I am telling you, this is the God's honest truth. But more importantly, the time frame. It was instantaneous. I sat down, read the last line, turned the page, Excalibur Project. Go and behold a pale horse. You'll see the chapter. And the lady who was the general manager of Excalibur. And I'm like, holy crap. What? And again, pages before that is, we can see what you're reading, and this guy, and it's almost like, this guy doesn't believe us. Okay. I'm pretending to be in a bunker in the army, NRO or whatever. But that, I'm whatever. And I got so freaked out that I actually emailed Stanton Freeman the entire situation and made sure it was Stanton. This was 10, 15, 30 seconds later, Excalibur Project. And Stanton Freeman wrote me and said, quote, the mathematical possibilities of that happening, especially in the time frame, I can't remember his wording, is next. It's impossible, meaning that there's another explanation. That's not coincidence. And that freaked me out a little. Here's this physicist. We obviously saw that I was sincere. Jim Mars said the same thing. He goes, well, what do you think it is? And I wrote back, I'm like, well, in this book, it says it's the government. He goes, well, who else could have done that? Who else could have known that the next page was Excalibur Project, paged you to the Excalibur nightclub, to a phone number that no one has? Who could have done that? I'm like, and I remember writing back, I'm like, aliens or the government? He's like, you got it, son. I'll never forget, he called me son. And then I called John Lear. And John Lear is like, John, there's 4 aliens digging holes in your backyard. Yes, I called him over the other day. I mean, he's so matter of fact, nothing bothers him. And he said, backed up with Bill Cooper said, he goes, look, they have the technology to peer into your thoughts, or to peer, and he didn't say remote viewing back then, but I don't know if that's what it was. And I still don't know if this was the 1 in a trillionth coincidence. I part of my credibility as a journalist and investigator is to not make declarative statements unless I've got it. And people appreciate that. Not everyone on the internet, but most people appreciate, hey, this guy is just telling you what happened. You figure it out.
Yeah.
So the Excalibur incident really made me think, maybe there's things out there that we don't understand, and especially with our government, and it made the Jon Stewart radar dish go live, go hot and start spinning. I moved downtown. I tell this story. I don't tell this to impress anybody. It's 1997. I'm running for state rep. I'm a part-time pro wrestler. I'm driving an 8-year-old black Porsche. I got a boat on Lake Michigan. I'm dating this super sexy, nice blonde who's my wife now of 24 years.
Awesome.
God, that poor woman. We are living the life. We have a condo downtown in what's called the Gold Coast of Chicago. Again, I'm not impressing. I'm impressing pop people, just like when I was in college. I'm living this great life, and my buddies call me, hey, you got to watch this alien interview on the UPN network. I originally thought it was Fox. It was on the UPN network, it was an upstart network back then. I'm thinking alien interview. Again, this is George Costanza. Yeah. I'm thinking a really weird-looking person at the Pentagon is going to hand a clipboard to a general, and they're going to do an interview for a job, and it's going to be on closed circuit. Tony, I'm telling you, that's what was going through my. So I have my potato chips and my in my drink, and I'm ready. 30 minutes into it, I'm like, what is that? I know about gray aliens, but this is brown. I know gray aliens have almond eyes. This has round eyes. It looks like no one's trying to hoax this. And I've been trying to figure out the word. And an internet person, by the way, the people on the internet have been awesome to me. I'm talking about just regular, interested people who have just given me tidbits and vernacular. And somebody on the internet said it's just so casual, so non-professional. And I'll give you a scenario later on about how I interpret that. There's two military people. Their shoulders are kind of getting into the camera view. It's one shot, one camera. There's no cuts. The doctors come in to tend to this being that's in distress. They're not in biohazard suits. If you and I were hoaxing this, I'd have them in PSP or whatever you call, the pressurized bio suits.
Because the question is, how can we make this look good?
Exactly. And no one's trying in this video. Now, how would I know about Hollywood? Well, being in the pro wrestling industry since '86, I knew about production and camera production, and I shot TV commercials, and I was around. I knew a lot of Hollywood people. I knew someone who was on the periphery of the Troy Duffy, the Boondock Saints group. Remember the guy that directed and wrote Boondock Saints, and there was a documentary on him. I knew someone in that periphery, and he would always talk to me about Hollywood and production. And I'm like, this something is not right here. This is either the worst hoax documentary on the planet Earth, or this is so casual that this might have been something real. And it's almost like when you hear something in childhood, or you see something, in your childhood, and it triggers back years later, like, what it's bothering me. It hung over me. It's like being diagnosed with something when you're 20 and in your 40s, it's going to be the end. It hangs over you, looms over you. It's the only way I can describe what this video was in my brain. And again, to hang in my brain with this crazy lifestyle of wrestling and the car business and flying around the country to buy cars and running my family car dealership and part-time wrestling and running for Congress, the Jon Stewart fee. I mean, my life was, having two children and then a stepson and having a family and vacations. I mean, I did not have the lifestyle of somebody that was, that would hone in and have something bother them. I was, it was like my brain was always a duck's back. It had to be like that. I always had just too much information coming in at all times. But this never left. So I'm running for United States Congress. And let me just, I'm sure you'll show them the film a bajillion times in this production. Yeah. On the bottom of this film is digital overlay graphics. It's something I found out because I interviewed VHS people from the 80s. Again, I hope people are impressed at least of the lengths of my investigation, like a true journalist. I just didn't accept information. And we're looking at the camera. I just didn't accept information, things I was shown, things I was told, emails that I was sent. I vetted every single bit of information 3 and 4 times.
Amazing.
To the point where Ralph Blumenthal of the New York Times went, stop.
I get it.
Okay. So go email Ralph. Did Jon Stewart at least vet everything? Okay. So it says DNI, Delta November Igloo /27. This I think is the 27 will end up being the explosion, the nuclear bomb of this investigation, in my opinion. So Victor, the whistleblower, and this is a 2-minute, 56-second film that was brought out by a man who called himself Victor, the whistleblower. And I will tell you the whole story about him. And I'm just talking about Jon Stewart in 97 watching this film. And he tells us that DNI, this film was made for the Department of Naval Intelligence, which doesn't exist. To this day, doesn't exist. Hoax, right?
Yeah.
Hoax.
Yeah, sure.
I'm running for Congress. This film starts bugging me. Why would you take all this money, a very great looking animatronic alien, if it was animatronic, why would you put an acronym of a facility or a government agency that doesn't exist?
Yeah.
Proving you hoax this.
Yeah.
I would have put CIA, FBI, NSA, Area 51,
Yes.
biohazard suits. You would not put a name and an acronym on that film if that did not exist. I'm running for Congress. 1999, I'm getting a huge media coverage by the national media because of Jesse Ventura's fame. And Bob Backlund, WWE wrestler, is also running for Congress in Connecticut. We're on talk show after talk show. The New York Times Magazine does an article on us. I mean, again, I was not running for dog catcher. I was a congressional campaign, the only congressional campaign that had national media exposure. I don't care what anyone says. So I drop out of the race because there's no chance. I don't have the money to pull this off. And Mark Kirk, who was the legislative aide of the congressman who was retiring, we became friends. I dropped out and endorsed him. He has a bus tour of the district, and he brings in a senator who used to be in the Navy, who was a POW. He's deceased now. They told me don't mention his name anymore until the documentary. Okay. I won't, but I think everyone, gray hair from a really hot state, POW, Navy pilot, senator, longtime senator. I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. And Mark Kirk was a naval aviator, radar intercept officer on an EAB Prowler. And after he makes a speech, he gets off the stage. I have a picture with him, And I said, Senator, great. My dad was in the Navy. He was a troubleshooter in the Air Training Squadron at Corpus Christi on the F-9 Phantom. He's like, oh yeah, I should have went there, but I went to Pensacola instead of Corpus Christi. Tell your dad thank you for his service. So before we get back on the bus, can I ask you a real quick question? Sure. Charlie, happy, and the band's playing. Da, na, na, na. I mean, can you see the scene?
Yeah.
And, people are around us like, okay, come on, because everyone wants to take pictures with them. I said, what is the Department of Naval Intelligence? Tony, he looks at me, his eyes get like coal. He gets this aggressive look, and he's like, I don't have to tell you anything like that, and you shouldn't ask questions like that. Turns around and storms into the bus, doesn't talk to me for the rest of the day. Now, I've told this story to journalists and investigative reporters, and all their eyebrows go, oh, we've had that moment. When you tell the mafia hitman his code word for the hit he did in Jersey in 1962 or whatever, and or you tell a senator or a politician, the name of a secret program that they've been funneling money from, or, the name of their mistress or whatever.
I got caught.
Yeah, it's called the third rail. When you've touched the third rail, sorry.
You're fine.
And they said, and you experienced that. And I asked legitimate investigative journalists. Well, they all said the same thing. I'd start investigating the Department of Naval Intelligence. So I do, since we have time here, I do wrap-ups because I think it's really important. We all have ADD. We're a 60-second soundbite generation. Yeah. I do wrap-ups. So, folks, I just want to ask you a question. On a network that just started, that had no money, on a program called Strange Universe, okay, this wasn't a lone documentary. This was a documentary special on a program. Listen to me. I'm not trying to beguile you or convince you. Just listen to me. It is my follow-up stories that will make you go, with my investigation, not the information that we're showing you. Very important. On a program that they didn't pay the people for the first 4 episodes, Strange Universe. I have been told by 2 people couldn't afford to pay their staff. This $150,000, $150,000 3-minute film, meaning the animatronic alien, if that's what it is, the crew, wardrobe, craft catering, rent the studio, manipulate this whole thing. 5 animatronic people. We're told it would have to be 5 people. That's how complicated this was. Can I at least say $100,000? People are telling me that a hacker, a side job guy, and I'll get into this too, a side job guy in 96 maybe could have created that for 10, 15 grand. So I have changed my vernacular, saying that would have cost 150. No, it wouldn't have. However, $100,000 production on a network, in a network show that couldn't afford to pay its staff in the beginning. Does that make any sense? Okay. Just saying. I'm not making a declarative statement. A film where their shoulders are showing in the screen. The medics come in like they just having a cup of coffee in the break room with short sleeve scrubs, okay, and masks, which is, I found out, biohazard level 2 in the government. That's all you're required, mask and gloves.
Really?
And a United States senator has just turned into Cujo, like a demon, over 3 letters on the bottom of a supposed hoax film on an agency that doesn't exist. No, I think we could stop right there to say something with this film ain't, and I'm using bad English, ain't right, and something's going on.
Yeah.
And I tell you what I think is not going on, that somebody hoaxed this.